can cancel any meetings, leaving the power of the mayor to convene, reschedule, postpone, continue, or relocate meetings of the city council. And the reasoning for that is we wouldn't want an out-of-control mayor to prohibit the council from gathering and reversing his or her inappropriate actions. That's basically a logical kind of requirement. The major change, though, is in terms of section B under that. We're adding a number E at the very end, and it says the city council may terminate the direct declaration of a local disaster or emergency or reverse any procedural act or order taken under that section at any time. So if the council decides there has been an abuse of power, they can rectify that immediately. And again, there is a limit of 30 days on the declaration unless it's renewed by the council. So those would be the substantive change and a minor change to make sure the council can get together.
Thank you, Alderman Potter-Gula. And I did get the correction here from our clerk that the motion was for the amended
Yes,
reading
sir.
that is before us. So appreciate that. Is there any discussion on the amendment, Alderman Wolski?
Mayor Sitma, thank you. Alderman Potter-Gula, I appreciate your work in bringing these changes. I would suggest that my interpretation of the ordinance prior to this would have presumed that the council has the authorities that I think you have clarified further. So I have absolutely no problem in this, and I have no problem making essentially adding the literal word to the document so that nothing has to be presumed. With that, Mr. Mayor, I have taken a couple calls on this. I think in relation to, one of the concerns that Alderman Potter-Gula raised, which is the check and balance, there have been some concerns in the community. I would share that I do not have them. I am a strong advocate of representative government and process, but I am a strong advocate of those pieces when we are under normal conditions. And under emergency conditions, we need to operate differently. And I think we have observed over the past weeks the extraordinary and important piece these types of executive declarations bring to the table. Governor Burgum is using them on a daily basis, and I think in an extraordinarily responsible and important fashion. It is a successful mechanism at the state government, and there is no reason we shouldn't mimic that same authority here at the local level. So I fully support this, and with, I think, Alderman Potter-Gula's clarifications, the public should have no concerns about the way this will be operated.
Alderman Pittner.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to echo Alderman Potter-Gula's, or Alderman Wolski's comments on the amended motion brought forth, and as well as some of his sentiments. I too received some feedback on this and giving so much authority to one individual, and in this case, the mayor. I don't disagree with that concern. Kind of like Alderman Wolski had stated, but in most cases, but in this case, we were dealing with public health and safety. And this action is a response to what's going on not only in our city, our state, our country, but around the world. And it is a global pandemic that we're dealing with. This action is to be prepared for our worst case scenarios and to be able to act swiftly to ensure the preservation of health and safety in our community. With all that being said, it is a responsibility, and I just want to echo this. And again, the governor's done a great job of this, of the North Dakota Smart. This is not about being tough. This is not about going to work. If people have concerns about this ordinance or this implementation, we can do our best job as community members to make sure that none of this has to be acted with by ensuring we stay home when we're sick, stay home as much as possible, wash our hands, implement social distancing into our lives. So as long as we implement those things, this will be a moot point in the end, and this action will be for little to no consequence. So again, I fully support this. This is about the preservation of safety, not only in our community, but on a global scale. So just wanted to put that out there.
Very well said, Alderman Pittner. Alderman Olson, I can't see any hand raised, but I will just ask as you're on the telephone, do you have any remarks, or I would look to other aldermen for further comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I would just say, looking back in Minet's history, we have had emergencies that have come up very quickly, such as the anhydrous spill. And I think that the mayor should have these executive privileges in order to take care of the health and safety of our community. So I fully support this.
Alderman Janser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did have a question which was answered by the city attorney earlier for me, and I'm going to just share the answer because I think there's a couple of things here. One is that with the amendments that have been suggested and are in the motion, it's still possible for aldermen to call a city council meeting, as is our current practice. So if that circumstance comes up, we can still do that. Secondly, the requirement for the council taking action with regard to this emergency declaration and these powers is a majority of the council. So thinking in circumstances where we have something going on that maybe disallows some of the aldermen from being able to be in communication or be present, it would only take 4 of us to take some actions regarding this. So I just wanted to put that out there because I think, as Alderman Padrigula rightly pointed out, having some checks and balances and some ways to work with this being enacted, but also have a framework for sort of controlling how things roll forward, I think is prudent.
Thank you, Alderman Janser. And for a little backstory on this as well, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Hendershot, that this is drawn out of either Grand Forks or Fargo's documents for what they have for executive order.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, this is almost identical to Grand Forks emergency ordinance.
Thank you. With that, I truly appreciate and absolutely 100% agree with Alderman Padrigula and all the rest of the aldermen that have spoken to this. There is one change, however, I would like to make. And this is just going on some fundamental stances that I have and hold dear to, and that is under the 238A number 2. I would actually like to make a motion to amend to remove firearms from that list. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Alderman Padrigula, and I'll speak briefly on this. And this is just, again, looking at the Bill of Rights, civil liberties, and the rest of the fundamental beliefs. I've worked through a lot of these scenarios in my mind on each one of these numbers as disasters that very well could come down through our community. And my assumption would be that if this was ever the case on a large scale, that order would come from outside of the community. But I personally feel very strongly that that power should not, at least in one person, it could be within the body, but not within one person, to have that limitation. Discussion on the motion to amend, removing the firearms word out of number 2. Alderman Padrigula.
I would have no problems in leaving that part of it up to the whole body. What I'm concerned about is, if you will, a state of insurrection when people go to Shields and wherever and loot the store and use it to kill each other. If you believe in the Second Amendment, as I do, we already should be able to take measures to protect ourselves. I am concerned about that. I think that's more of an issue for a large urban area. But there's a picture in the paper this morning of a story about people going to gun stores and emptying the shelves. There was a picture of a store in Los Angeles that had a line around the corner. And it seemed that in times of insurrection or something like that, we should have some ability to squelch that for a bit. I have no problem if the whole body does that. I guess I think we should have that option available to us. Yeah.
Further discussion on the motion to amend? Alderman Wolski.
Mayor Sitma, I'm a little torn on this because I think the intent here is to leave options open given circumstances that we cannot predict and have no sense of. This is not a particular concern of mine because I appreciate your principles on this issue, and I know that it would not be invoked. And I don't think that's a conditional, right? And I think that's the attitude that North Dakota keeps and holds dear to, and so I wouldn't expect it. But given this is your request, I think I can support the amendment.
Further discussion? Alderman Straight.
Mr. Mayor, I too, I could go down this list of any number of things and something that I'm not going to get in the weeds of the deep discussion of this, but our own principled perspectives that we have. I am a huge critic of payday loan centers, and I am aware through education that they prey on military families. We have a military base. I also recognize we're in the middle of an economic crisis, so I'm not going to bring it forward in this crisis because we have some real challenges, but these are the dilemmas that we're faced with. When is it a priority? I'm not going to bring that up today, but I understand your principled approach to this, sir, and so I'm not. I recognize where we're at, and again, the one thing I would say about this, and it's ironic because I've taken a couple calls as well, is this is why elections matter. If people don't think about how our leaders would handle themselves in crisis, granted, we have to have some of these mechanisms in place, but that's why elections matter as well. The people that sit up here have to earn the trust of the people, and the residents have to think through these scenarios. And so I will support this today for that reason.
Alderman Pittner.
Thank you, Mayor. I fall in line, I think, with everyone else up here. I think I could go through this list and strike a lot of lines through this because I'm not a big believer in taking rights away from citizens. But again, this is a global issue. This is a global pandemic. We see in other states in our country where these same guidelines have been expressed to them and relayed to them, but they ignore them, and they still go party at the beach, or they still go to the bar, or they still gather in groups larger than 10 or 50, and then we see the outbreaks and things. This is our responsibility, I think, to maybe be the parent. I know I draw a lot of parallels to being a parent. If I let my kids do everything they wanted to do, I wouldn't be here right now. They wouldn't be here right now. So again, this is, and I appreciate falling in line maybe with the Bill of Rights and not trying to infringe on any rights. So I think anytime I think we could strike something from this list, I would be pleased with it. But again, we have to maybe not do the easy thing, but we have to do the right thing in this case. So I'll support that amendment.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Motion to amend is just striking the word firearms from number 2 on the list. Please call the roll.
Sitma,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski.
Yes.
Motion passed. We're back to the original motion before us. Any further discussion on the motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Padragula,
Yes.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner.
Yes.
Motion is approved. That takes us to number 4, the Child Care for First Responders. 4.1 is a budget amendment, Child Care for the First Responders. The recommendation to the City Council is to pass an ordinance amending the 2020 annual budget to increase the Emergency Fund professional service contract expenditures for the emergency personnel child care service and approve the use of emergency fund cash reserves. Document 2020 Emergency Personnel Child Care Service PDF is attached and is also available online for those folks watching.
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Janser to approve, and who had the second?
Over here.
Second by Alderman Pittner. Discussion on the motion. I will probably just quickly go through here for anyone, and this is applicable to 4.1 and 4.2, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions on this. The quick, narrow scope on this is the standing up of the child care facility for essential personnel, first responders, fire, police, community ambulance, and essential personnel within public works for the wastewater and water treatment facility. With school being out, that was a concern that has been identified in numerous other states and was also identified here early on last week by Trinity Health and our departments as being something in need even before this week approached, to ensure that we were able to have all of our nurses and medical staff being able to go to work if their child is not in school. Ordinarily, they would not have to have daycare. That is the premise of this. The hospital went through and identified their critical staff, those folks that would use this only when they had to go to work. The same went for our fire, police, and then community ambulance. Of course, that's handled through Trinity, and then our folks in public works with the two departments that I had identified. The outlines that are before us are all drawn out. We had substantial discussions between Minot Public Schools, First District Health Unit. I did on this speak directly to the governor, the lieutenant governor, and then the director of Health Human Services from the state in help guiding how this would evolve and how this would look like. There is substantial cost share from Minot Public School that is outlined, not in the deep detail, but using 3 of the facilities, as well as CLC personnel and food costs. And then having those approved lists prior so that only the children that are on that list actually are allowed inside. There is substantial efforts inside for continual cleaning and nightly cleaning overnight to ensure that all preventative measures are taken care of, as well as Minot Public School having the personnel people on hand to administer any medicines, daily medicines that are not applicable to any type of cold or illness, as any child that has a cold or illness would not be allowed. There are daily temperatures that are taken from the children, and every possible scenario is kind of played out through this process and how we can best handle this facility in the safest way possible. As it was said numerous times during these very quick stand-up meetings, we're doing the best we can with what we have. And that is all subject to change if, in fact, the atmosphere within what is going on out in the community were to change. So that is where we're at. I want to say thank you to staff very much for a lot of the very quick work from Mr. Lakefield and Ms. Hendershot in helping craft very quickly the contracts, and also working through the finance part of this so that we could bring this before council today so that we can ensure all of this that is being kind of overseen and managed by a healthcare provider, not healthcare, daycare provider in town to meet the requirements of the Health and Human Service requirements by state law. It came together very quickly, and it just astounded at the quick work by staff and everybody else to ensure that we are able to continue on with the vital need for healthcare and emergency response within our community. Alderman Straight.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to clearly support this today. If I can, I wanted to speak one thing about a conversation I had with a daycare provider as it pertains to kind of some of the current hoarding tendencies that are taking place in the supermarkets and some of the challenges she's facing. If that's okay with you. The importance for me to be here today is I know people are following online, and many in our community have neighbors that are running daycare facilities out of their homes. My neighbor in particular is taking care of firefighters and police officers' children. She is of age, a little older, and as a result of some of the shopping challenges, she's having a hard time tracking down some of the supplies necessary to run the daycare facility. So if you are living next to a daycare provider and you could reach out and see just neighborly what they might need, milk, some of the basic supplies that are shortages in our community, it's just another reason to be a little more neighborly. Obviously, we need to do it in a safe and mindful fashion to protect those that are caring for young children as well. But some of these folks are having challenges of their own just getting the needs necessary to take care of these children. So when you're out shopping, if you can just remember to please get the essentials. I haven't read anything that we're going to be running out of supplies in the here and now, but it's just important to remember because my neighbor was incredibly stressed. She's got, challenges. She's a foreign resident. She's got a elderly sister living in another country, and as you can imagine, you run down all these scenarios of people that have medical challenges. Everybody's looking at their retirement funds. It's a stressful time, so if we could just be mindful of our neighbors and some of the challenges they're facing, it might help us to just be better community residents. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to rant for a second.
No, thank you, Alderman Straight. And that actually does put a point directly to this, is the concern is if daycares close up for those healthcare providers and emergency workers, first responders, critical personnel, that puts more pressure on this need. And the longer that those facilities can stay stocked and healthy, the better that the entire community is going to be. Alderman Wolski.
Mayor Sitma, going to join my comments to the next item as well. I'll, of course, be supporting both. And I just want to thank you and our staff and everybody who had a part of this for being so on the ball on this particular issue. It's an extraordinary example of effective, good government. And in difficult times, I know that's reassuring for people to see, is that we are paying attention and we are responding to the challenges that come before us. And this is a great example. So thank you to you and for everybody who was a part of this.
Further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, please call the roll on 4.1, the budget amendment.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski.
Yes.
Sitma.
Yes. Motion is approved. 4.2 is the scope of service and contract for childcare for first responders. The recommendation before City Council approved is the attached service agreement between the City of Minot and Resser LLC, doing business as the Learning Tree. I would look for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Pittner. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Janser. I would just speak very briefly on this one, only to indicate that this is the daycare facility that also reached out to me early on, that was working through the parameters of this to make sure that we are compliant with all of the needs, and then also Magic City Campus. Again, this was an exceptional effort by city staff to marry up the needs with the ability to move this forward. So again, I have to say thank you to staff, to the Learning Tree, and to Trinity Health for helping work through this process. Alderman Wolski.
Mayor Sitma, one quick question that just occurred to me, and this is based on comments that we heard from Governor Burgum, I think maybe over the weekend, regarding the child care issue. But he mentioned that that they, just given the sort of logistics and cleaning and spacing challenges that come with this particular circumstance, that the state laws would probably be growing a little more stringent in terms of adults per child and physical space, et cetera. Does this contract, maybe also for our attorney, allow us to be flexible if the state changes their circumstances at this point?
And maybe before Ms. Hendershot speaks, we're actually overstaffing to meet that anticipation, as well as working towards all distancing efforts at all locations to also anticipate any, let's say, further tightening of restrictions regarding that matter. So all of that was anticipated through Health and Human Services, Minot Public School, and even First District Health Unit. Ms. Hendershot.
Mr. Mayor and Alderman Wolski, the contract does require compliance with all federal, state, and local laws, so those would be as amended. Yep.
Any further questions or discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Olson.
I fully support this motion, but I do have a question that could possibly lead to an amendment. I'm going to put my special ed teacher hat on momentarily and ask if children whose parents meet the criterion for the essential workers, if their child is over the age of 12 but would have a special need, would it be possible that they could have some of this daycare provided as well?
Alderman Olson. We actually did discuss those with special needs, those that might be over that age. We would have to identify special personnel that aren't already on staff, either with the Learning Tree or Minot Public School. And we anticipated that over the first couple of weeks, we would take a look at the need, and that those needs were to be brought forth by Trinity Health, all of the fire, police, the community ambulance, as well as the two public work entities from water treatment and wastewater, to see if those needs were there. No further need was communicated to us at this time for those types of services. However, we did discuss that if something should come forward, that we would have that discussion at that time rather than trying to staff that up without the need being present. Does that answer your question, Alderman Olson?
Yes, it does, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the clarification.
Yes. Alderman Straight?
Mr. Mayor, is that a situation then where you could just act and you wouldn't need us to necessarily come back and authorize something?
According to the disaster and emergency ordinance that was just passed, the answer is yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski.
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Motion is approved. That takes us to number 5, adjournment.
So moved.
So, motion by Alderman Pittner, second.
Second.
By Alderman Janser. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those,
Aye.
same sign. We're adjourned.